Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Neya and I am based in Myanmar as an expat living and working here.
All right, Neya, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So good to
Excited
see
to
you.
be to join your podcast.
Yeah, well, I've been a fan of yours for a while, which I think, you know, most Burmese people around the world know who you are because of your content. So I just want to say
Yeah,
thank you.
that's very bizarre to hear someone say that, but it's very flattering as well. It's yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy my content, that it's been
There,
able to reach so many people.
there's not many windows into Myanmar, so you're one of the few, do you know what I mean? So I love it when you walk around and I've learned so much about Myanmar because of you. Seriously.
Oh. Yeah, yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. It's funny because I don't think like yeah, I mean, so for those of you who don't know who I am, I have a YouTube channel. So I was living in Myanmar and then I started a YouTube channel about I guess just like my life as an expat in Myanmar and kind of just shared that with a lot of people. And yeah, this is what Tan's speaking about is just like the YouTube channel. So if you don't know, sorry, we were just talking about something so out of context, but
I'm literally assuming everybody knows who you are, but all right,
yeah,
well,
I know. I think like that's a big assumption.
I don't think that's a bad assumption. But okay, tell me how you started, like because you lived in Asia before Myanmar. So first tell me your Asian journey, like what took you out of Australia?
Yeah, so I was born and bred in Melbourne, Australia, and then I my heritage is Malaysian Chinese, and I grew up in a very like multicultural household. We used to have like international students always living with us, so I was very familiar with having like very cultural background and like environment around me. So I always loved traveling, and my parents like really loved traveling as well. So we would always go back to like Malaysia, would travel around different parts of Asia. And so when I was finishing university, I did a few like short trips to Asia and like worked a little bit through university, and then I ended up doing the last part of my degree at in Hong Kong. And
Yes.
so I was really enjoying being in Hong Kong and decided to find a job there, which was really great. And then I did do that. But my partner that I met in Hong Kong also at the same time was recruiting for work and got a job offer in Myanmar. And
Ah,
yeah, so we were like, we had actually been to Myanmar just the Christmas prior to him getting the job offer. So we kind of had an insight into what it was like in Myanmar. But I think from a tourism standpoint, like we only went to Bagan and Yangon,
mm,
and like Bugan's really awesome, but obviously like not really going to live. Like for me, I'm not going to live there. But Yangon was good, but I feel like for me, after living in Yangon, like you really need to live there to like really appreciate the city. I think as a tourist, it's really hard to do that. Yeah, so we moved to Myanmar and we took the plunge. I definitely like thought about it and ummed and ahed about it for a while, but my parents were like super supportive and like where they were encouraging me to go and take the plunge and just try something different because obviously like Myanmar is so unique, and it was a great decision and it ended up moving to Myanmar. So yeah, that was the journey into Myanmar, and then from there
so
I
when you originally moved, how long were you intending to stay? Like what was the length of
so
the
it was like there was no fixed time period, but it was definitely we were like, okay, if we don't like it, we can always move back to Hong Kong. Like let's just give ourselves 2 years. But honestly, like absolutely love Myanmar and like fell in love with the country and didn't really want to leave. But obviously left earlier this year. But I yeah, definitely loved the country. Still love the country a lot. And miss it very dearly. But yeah, we moved to Myanmar and built a life, which was really awesome.
when did you first decide on YouTube?
So YouTube is kind of funny. I was on exchange in Hong Kong, and I'm a person like my personality type is that I need to be doing like a lot of things. Like if I chill and like I have too much chill time, I'm like, I'm not doing enough with my life. It's just like my personality type. It's not healthy, but it's also not bad. So I was kind of thinking about taking up something creative because I was like, oh, I kind of want to document my journey. It's really fun. And I didn't really watch that much YouTube prior to starting a YouTube channel, but I knew about vlogging. And then like once I kind of started watching it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Maybe I'll try and do something like this. But I decided I wanted to do it as an experimental thing, just for fun. And it was kind of more of a way for me to update my family and friends and what I was doing and stay connected. And yeah, so I started a YouTube channel in Hong Kong, and I didn't really take it too seriously when I first started it. I was quite non-committal because I think when you start something new and creative, you kind of feel a little bit shy, and you're like, but actually it's something that you have to just like fully commit to.
Totally.
Yeah. And then when I moved to Myanmar, for me, I think I was really struggling for a while on YouTube to find my niche. I was like, what is like my point of difference? Like what's really interesting, right?
But it's Myanmar. Don't you think it would have been enough that you're
I know. And then I moved,
Myanmar?
yeah, exactly. So I moved to Myanmar and I was like, oh my gosh, I've just like, this is it, right?
This is, yeah.
And I was like, had no problem and no issue like thinking of things to make content about. That was so exciting. And it was a perfect opportunity for me to update like my friends and family with what I was doing. It was just such a new and fun journey. And so I started YouTubing like very regularly in Myanmar, like every week. And for me, it was just like, I think at the time I got to Myanmar, maybe I just hit like 1,000 subscribers. Maybe, but I was very like just focused on building my own journey through YouTube. Like I wasn't really like, I wanted to hit 1,000 subscribers just because, but like other than that, I was just more really documenting my journey. Yeah, and so I realized I had like a really interesting niche, and realized that not that many people make YouTube videos in Myanmar, and so I don't think I really processed or understood the gravity of like how important my channel could like become eventually. And so for me, I was just having so much fun with it, and I think that's what people liked, because I was just being very like, I would like to say I'm quite genuinely like myself on my YouTube videos. I'm not like a different personality. So I was just like a fun outlet, and then it really transformed into something completely different, which was really awesome.
Loved it. Like I said, so grateful that you were there, because it was a nice insight for people like us, like Burmese people outside of Myanmar, for us to see how it is through you. Because most Burmese are not vlogging. And
yeah, for sure. I think I didn't realize that as well, that there were so many people, like so many Myanmar individuals that were outside of the country that were not getting like an insight into Myanmar.
No.
And like for instance, for yourself, you've been out of the country for so long that I didn't process in my mind that there would be people who would like it, that they'd find it really valuable. But it was really nice. Very like really nice.
Yeah. So all right, let me ask you, during your time, so you lived there for 2 years.
Yes.
I would like to ask you the qualities that you like most and least about Myanmar. You have to be honest.
Do I have to choose things? Okay, fine. My favorite things, my favorite qualities. I love Myanmar people. I think they're absolutely like, they're so kind and so genuine. And I feel like people just say that off the cuff, but I honestly mean it, in a sense that I feel very safe in Myanmar. Like I would travel around, catch like cabs everywhere, catch Grab, walk around the streets, and I would feel completely safe because, yeah, you're a foreigner, and like I guess for me, I'm not like Caucasian, so I don't stand out as much, but I am very tall, so I do stand out in that way. But no one, like, people would stare, but no one's like gonna bother you. And I think that's one of the things that I quite liked in Myanmar, is that everyone was kind of just like curious but kept to themselves, and they wouldn't like ever impose too much on like others. The other thing I really like about Myanmar is, so yeah, the people are amazing, super, super lovely, like very kind-hearted. Second thing, Myanmar is one of the only places that I visited that I would say is like still very authentically to its roots. And I think people now like who live there might say it's not as authentic, but I think like if you compare it to somewhere like Thailand or Vietnam, mainly Thailand, like, it's become very commercialized. Tourism is kind of taken over their whole economy. They've lost a lot of, like, you wouldn't see people wearing, their normal traditional wear as a daily thing. It would be for like a costume, or they would be wearing it as part of like some sort of like tourism thing, right? Whereas in Myanmar, it was awesome. Like I would go to
That's
work,
such a good point. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, people would wear their longji. Like I was like, I want a longji. I got longji. Like it was just, it's awesome. And I think it's so nice to see like tradition on the streets, with like not being forced. People aren't being like wearing it for some sort of economic gain.
So especially when you say it that way, I've never looked at it that way, because think about it, like it's like Chinese people don't walk around looking like they do in Bruce Lee movies, because that was 50 years ago.
Exactly.
And
for sure.
yeah,
and it's really hard.
countries...
Like there's not many countries that you find that genuine. I mean, I think in Africa, there's a lot of people who still wear like the traditional like ethnic outfits. Maybe in Japan, they wear it, but like it'll be on special occasions.
It'll be for special.
That's
such a good point. Yeah.
And then the other thing that I really like about Myanmar people, well, actually the thing I like about Myanmar people is that they're very resilient, and I think they've shown that over the last like 2 years of just like COVID and everything that's happened. And, you know, I work with colleagues every day, and just remain so positive. And I feel like if other people would just never be that positive and resilient and like patient in different circumstances. So yeah, I learned a lot from that environment, and it definitely made me more grounded moving there from somewhere like Hong Kong, where it's just like so fast paced, and you don't get a chance to just stop and appreciate like where you are. So they're probably like my favorite things. Also, the last thing is that there's just always something new to discover, right? And for me, like living somewhere completely different to Australia, which is like so developed, and you know, changes don't really happen that much. I think Myanmar is just like ever evolving and changing, and you know, like I would get excited about a new road being built like outside our house, like oh my gosh, they extended this like whole road, they've repaved it. It's so exciting. So for me, like if it's a personal journey, I really loved all these new things I got to see and learn.
Especially because watching
watching a country grow is just so exciting.
I was just going to say that, especially in the modern era. Like in the past, countries grew, but it happened over like 20, 50, 100 years. But with Myanmar, you're seeing it grow and change and develop in front of your very eyes. Like you're right in the middle of the hurricane.
For sure. Yeah, and then the things that I don't like.
Because
there are always things you have to balance.
Tell me what. Yeah, if you want to say don't like, you can say like the least.
Like the least.
What could be improved, or what could they learn better?
I think what they're not that great at, but they're improving and getting better at, is thinking for themselves. So I think, like for instance, I understand. Like so, I think if you ask a lot of people who work in Myanmar, they will say that sometimes like critical thinking is something that needs to be developed a little bit more. And I just think it comes from. I think it's kind of a product of Asia, though. Asia's very hierarchical, and because of that, like it's like I will only do it if like X manager says I can do it, right? But it's like the ability to think outside the box sometimes and think, okay, like for instance, I go to Gongcha and they give me a drink, and it's like I asked for no sugar and I asked a little ice, but then I got the drink and it's like super sweet. I'm like, I can't drink this. Can you please like remake it for me? And their answer is no, we can't do that. We can't do that. Like, but the answer was always just no, no, no. But I was like, but why are you saying no? Like, why can't you do it? And I think it's the ability to take a step back and just think about the processing of why, and like, actually, can I do it? Right? Like, how can I fix a situation? But I think that comes with maturity of like thinking. And I think there are so many like talented people in Myanmar, especially over the last few years. I think it's been really growing, and I think companies are really a better environment to really push people to learn and become better thinkers. But I find that a trend throughout Myanmar that people kind of think like that. Maybe it's a mentality of like it's easier just not to think and just to follow like what I'm supposed to do based on the rules. But I would say like that's one of the things I would love to see people get better at in Myanmar.
And you said you see it getting better. So is it the younger generation you see it more?
I think yes, and I think also when you have, I think people are getting better educated, and having more opportunities for exposure to um, maybe like foreign companies or like local companies that have like grown quite large and they have like a different way of doing things. I think a lot of repatriates who have come back have really helped to kind of inject a lot of like entrepreneurial spirit, but also like good thinking and like inspiring other people in Myanmar to use their resources and like think differently about how they approach certain like problems. So I definitely think there's like an environment which is very supportive and very geared towards improving everyone's overall thinking. And I think it's shown over the last like few months that people have really learned to like think for themselves and like, you know, speak up and make their point of what they want to do and have something to believe in, which is great.
So powerful, so important. Yeah. And in that example you gave, I mean, so the manager, obviously we can assume that the person, her manager has told her, no remaking drinks. That's the rule. So
yeah,
you can't, you know, who's teaching the manager, but also it's about the managers giving the people space to make decisions, like think for yourself, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Or I think it's
balancing hard rules versus just complete freedom.
Yeah, correct. Like it definitely that balancing hard rules with like freedom. Like it's just like it's even I think more that they haven't been faced with that situation before, and so they don't know what to do, which is okay. But you have to breed an environment where you can approach a problem you've never faced, but think out of the side of the box of how to deal with it.
So that means you need a system, you need a way of thinking rather than what to think.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
So this is called Burmese Entrepreneur for those reasons that you just said. Basically, I want to encourage entrepreneurial thinking because that's, I think, a weakness that Burmese speakers have as a whole. So I want to ask you, in your opinion, well, number one, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
I guess more recently, I feel that I am a bit more of an entrepreneur / maybe I have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit, I would say, within me.
And I think how would you describe it?
Yeah,
how would you describe
I was going to actually say, I think that being an entrepreneur doesn't have to necessarily be attached to you owning a business. Like, I don't think it has to be like, oh, I own this business, therefore I am an entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur is a mindset. Like, I think it's definitely a way of thinking, like we were saying, and a way of living. Like, it's not for everyone. Not everybody wants to like be really proactive and like think outside the box and come up with new solutions. Like I think you're just wired that way. And so I think for me as a young age, I've always asked, my dad bought me a book when I was like really young. It was this book about like why. And he was like, you always ask me why. So I bought you this book. And so I think it's like, that's kind of like an entrepreneurial person.
Dad.
Yeah. An entrepreneurial person is like someone who's always thinking like, but why do we do that? And like, oh, how can I improve that?
Things so huge. Things like questions, the power of asking questions.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I guess my view on being an entrepreneur is I think it's like an embodiment of a way of thinking and like being. So I think more recently over the last like 2 years, I've definitely realized that I am a lot more of an entrepreneur than I think I am. I just think as a person, that's how I am. Yeah.
I love it. That's so key, especially when you say it's not about physically owning a business. And I totally agree. And I love the way you put it. So you can have an entrepreneurial mindset while still working in an office job. Sure. The same way you could have a crappy entrepreneurial mindset while owning a business.
Exactly, for sure. Like, I don't think, yeah.
Just because you own a business, it doesn't mean you're entrepreneurial. And just because you work in an office, it doesn't mean you're not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Boom, that's a cool point. Very interesting point. So just before I let you go, if I'm a young person living in Myanmar now, what can I do? What are the first steps that I should do to gain an entrepreneurial spirit mindset?
Okay.
Oh, what
So
did
for
you?
me,
Yeah.
well, I think that you don't have to force yourself to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to force yourself to be like have an entrepreneurial mindset. I think it's a journey to that end point, but and it's always a journey. Like even once you like are like, oh, maybe I might be
Never-ending journey.
entrepreneurial. Yeah. So I think the more important thing to do is to always be really open to learning. So for me, like I love learning about new things. It doesn't mean you have to like read books or, you know, watch documentaries. It depends on how you want to
Be
learn. Like,
open.
yeah, like for me, I think I'm very curious about people. I'm very curious about cultures and like kind of just delving further into people's stories. And I think that always guides me to learning more about certain like subjects or things, which I think is really interesting. So I would say if you're someone who's young and like um and you want to start simply with kind of maybe heading on down an entrepreneurial path and being a little bit more of an independent thinker, I think the really good point to start is just like trying things that you are a bit scared of, like things that I find really foreign. I love just like go on YouTube and be like, oh, like how do you do this? Because it's fun to like find out and learn, because then you realize it's not that difficult. And you'll realize that you can do and be resourceful, like and do a lot of things by yourself. And then secondly, I think just have an open willingness to learn, because I think as long as you're willing to learn, people like you'll attract people who will teach you things. And then you'll also people want to like be around someone who wants to learn and is like inquisitive, and not
Exactly.
just, yeah. And I think you do yourself a disservice if you think that you know everything, because I think there's so much
Oh,
to learn. But yeah, I would say I think just complete openness to learn is really great. And I think for me, I've also been a person that's very I wouldn't say I'm like I'm happy go lucky, but I'm in a way like very I live in the present, but I'm very open, and I'm very open to like where life takes me. I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know. I believe very much so in, I think everything happens for a reason. So I'm kind of like, when something happens, I'm not like, oh, this is like a really negative experience. I'm kind of like, oh,
yeah,
this must be
totally
happening
agree.
for a reason. And like, you kind of think about like, what's the lesson that you're going to learn out of it. So I think, yeah, that's really important.
And just,
Also, I think
yeah.
it's really important. Sorry, I think it's really important to not be scared to like not know things. I think a lot of,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
yeah, I was going to say, because I think a lot of people are really like, they think, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I have to be like super smart, or like in any avenue of life, people feel like they must know XYZ to be able to like speak about something. But I think it's really impressive to turn up to something and be like, well, I don't really know, but I'm just here to learn.
Mm.
Right. Like, and that's going to get you a lot further in life than being like, well, I know everything about this.
Yeah, it's so huge, and I think it's a more it's a human thing rather than just a Burmese thing, which is, you
yeah, for
don't
sure.
want to seem stupid. I don't want to say the reluctance to admit I don't know.
Mm.
It's hard for a lot of people, and especially I see it in Burma, but it's overall. Just admitting to yourself that you don't know is really difficult. It
Yeah,
sounds easy.
exactly. For sure. It is hard to sometimes be a student, you know, like, and be okay with like not being the expert in something. But
Because we don't
yeah,
want
I
to waste
mean,
we don't want to waste mental energy. We just want to get to the answer. So you see an answer, okay, take it, and I don't want to seek anymore. That's
for
it.
sure.
I've adopted this and I've closed this part, this
Yeah.
line of questioning.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's I the last thing I would say in terms of like young people, I would spend more time doing and less time thinking about it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
another
Because I'm
golden
very,
nugget.
yeah, I think I'm as a person, I'm very action oriented in a sense. Like, I'm like, oh, I want to do something. So I'm just going to try it, because if I don't try it, then I'll probably always think like, what would that have been like? And I think the what if is going to make you more, like, hurt you more in the long term, because you can spend forever planning and thinking about how you're going to do something and then never actually do it. Yeah.
Awesome. This is like so applicable not just for Burmese people, but everyone who wants to improve. So awesome. awesome noticing and reminders. Because I call these reminders because we all kind of know them, but we don't do it. We know it, but we don't do it.
No, for sure. I think it's I mean, everybody's like that. It's also so easy sometimes to forget to be a little bit more present and just like use the energy around you to like improve yourself or learn. And yeah, so easy, I think, nowadays to sit around and just like compare yourself to others. I think the world has definitely like led down a path of many avenues where you can just endlessly compare your life on like LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, you know, of who you could be and what you could have been. But yeah, that's why I mean, say like do more, like spend less time worrying about what other people are doing. My parents told me from a young age, they were like, Neya, like don't worry about what other people think because they're not paying your bills. And I was like, that's very true. And now that I'm older and I pay my own bills, it resonates more.
I'm so happy to hear that because I have 2 kids and I'm always telling them stuff. But in my mind, they're not listening. But now that you just said that, it makes me think, well, maybe something's going in. Because just looking at
don't
my
worry.
parents' point of view, I'm worried that...
Yeah, if you say it enough, it'll absorb at some point.
Good tip. I'm going to keep saying it. Don't worry what other people think.
Exactly.
What's the plan for the Neya YouTube channel moving forward in the next 6 to 12 months?
So I guess I've been a little bit I've had a bit of a creative slump, to be honest, because since leaving Myanmar, it was quite sad about it all. And then my channel really started to grow a lot in December last year, and I was so excited with all this content I had like planned to make. And yeah, I just think like the world was kind of my oyster with my channel, and I was so excited to make so many new cool videos. But then obviously I left the country, and since then I've just kind of been a little bit confused about what to post because a lot of my audience is in Myanmar. But at the same time, now I've moved back to Hong Kong and there's still so many great videos that I could make in Hong Kong. So I guess for me, I kind of feel like I've started again and having to like rebuild an audience to a degree in Hong Kong.
So you're starting again, but you're not starting again because you're starting again, but you have the experience and the knowledge and the followers. You know, you have, I'm sure Burmese will keep following you.
Yeah, so I do have followers, and I like really appreciate that. I think sometimes I feel a little bit sad that I can't show more Myanmar content because I know that people really liked it and I really loved making that content as well. So let's
see what the future holds.
Exactly. Hopefully one day I can return. It'll be good.
Cool. Neya, thank you so much. It was super fun.
No, thanks so much for having me. Loved it. I hope that everybody kind of got something interesting or insightful or just liked listening to the podcast. I love your podcast. I think it's super, I love like the vision and kind of like the purpose is really, really great. And I think that it's super cool to like meet fellow, not that I'm Myanmar, but fellow like Burmese creators. I think, there's so many Myanmar people out there and it's so great to connect. So thanks for having me.
Neya, Jezuba.
Jezuba.